If your blood pressure reading at home doesn't match what your doctor gets in the office, you are not imagining things, and you are definitely not alone. Today I want to walk you through something that trips up millions of people every single day without them even realizing it. Because here's the truth. The number you see on that little screen when you check your blood pressure at home might be wrong. Not because the machine is broken, not because you're doing something crazy, but because of a handful of small, sneaky mistakes that almost nobody tells you about. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what they are, how to fix them, and how to get a reading you can actually trust. So stick with me, because this is one of those videos where a few small changes can genuinely make a big difference in how you understand your own health. Let's start with why this even matters. Blood pressure is one of those numbers that quietly shapes so much of your long-term health. It affects your heart, your kidneys, your brain, even your eyes. And for a lot of people over 60, keeping an eye on it at home has become part of the daily routine. Maybe you check it first thing in the morning with your coffee. Maybe you check it before bed. Maybe your doctor asked you to track it and bring in the numbers at your next visit. Whatever your reason, the goal is the same. You want a number that reflects reality, so you and your doctor can make good decisions together. But here's the problem. Studies suggest that a surprising number of home readings are off by a significant margin, sometimes enough to make a normal reading look high, or a high reading look falsely normal. And when that happens, it can lead to confusion, unnecessary worry, or worse, a false sense of security. So let's talk about the first big mistake, and this one might surprise you. It's your arm position. A lot of people check their blood pressure with their arm resting on their lap, or hanging down at their side, or propped up on the armrest of a chair that's too low. It feels natural, it feels comfortable, but it can throw your numbers off in a real way. Here's why. When your arm is below the level of your heart, gravity makes your heart work a little harder to push blood down into that arm, and the cuff can pick up a higher reading than what's actually happening in your body. On the flip side, if your arm is raised too high, above heart level, you might get a reading that looks lower than it really is. The sweet spot is having your arm supported on a flat surface, like a table, with the cuff resting right about at the same height as your heart. That one small adjustment alone can shift your number, sometimes by several points. Now here's a mini thought before we move on. If you've ever taken your blood pressure sitting on the edge of a bed, or in a soft armchair with no armrest, you might have been getting a reading that wasn't quite telling you the truth. And that's just the first mistake. There's more, and some of these are even easier to overlook. Let's talk about mistake number 2, talking during the reading. This one sounds almost too simple to matter, but it does. Some research shows that talking, even casual conversation, can raise blood pressure readings by a noticeable amount. Think about it. When you're mid-sentence, your body is doing more than just sitting still. Your breathing changes, your muscles engage slightly, and your whole system shifts gears just a little. So if your spouse asks you a question while you're mid-reading, or the television is on and you're half paying attention to a show, or your grandkids are chattering in the next room and you're half listening, that reading might be higher than what your true resting blood pressure actually is. The fix here is simple, but it does take a little discipline. Sit quietly. No talking, no texting, no scrolling, just 5 minutes of calm before you even put the cuff on, and then silence while it takes the reading. Which brings us to mistake number 3, and this is a big one. Not resting long enough beforehand. A lot of us live busy lives, even in retirement. Maybe you just got back from a walk, or you just finished doing dishes, or you rushed to grab the monitor because you remembered you were supposed to check it before dinner. Whatever the reason, jumping straight into a reading without resting first is one of the most common ways people end up with an inflated number. Your body needs time to settle. Doctors generally recommend sitting quietly for about 5 minutes before you take a reading, with your feet flat on the floor, your back supported, and your legs uncrossed. That last part, crossed legs, is actually its own small culprit, because it can raise the pressure in your veins and slightly affect the reading too. Let's pause here for a second, because I know that's a lot to take in already. Arm position, talking, resting time, leg position, It might feel like a lot of rules for something that seems like it should just be simple, but here's the encouraging part. Once you build these into a habit, it takes maybe an extra 5 or 6 minutes, and it becomes second nature. You're not doing anything complicated. You're just giving your body a fair chance to show its true number instead of a stressed, rushed, or awkwardly positioned one. Now let's move on to something that catches almost everyone off guard: cuff size. This is one of the most under-discussed reasons home readings can be inaccurate. Blood pressure cuffs are not one size fits all, even though a lot of the ones sold in stores are marketed that way. If a cuff is too small for your arm, it can squeeze too tightly and give you a reading that's higher than reality. If it's too big, it can give you one that's lower than reality. Some studies suggest that an ill-fitting cuff can shift a reading by 10 points or more, which is a big enough difference to change how a doctor might interpret your numbers. So if you've had the same cuff for years, or you picked it up without really checking the sizing, it might be worth double-checking the fit. Most cuffs have a printed range on the inside, showing what arm circumference they're designed for, and it only takes a minute to measure your upper arm and compare. Here's something else that trips people up, and it's the placement of the cuff itself. It should sit directly on bare skin, not over a sleeve, even a thin one. Rolling up a sleeve so it bunches at the top of your arm can actually create a kind of tourniquet effect, and that can affect the reading too. So bare skin, cuff placed about an inch above the bend of your elbow, snug but not painfully tight. That's the setup you're aiming for. Let's take a quick re-engagement moment here, because I want to make sure this is landing the way I want it to. So far, we've covered arm position, talking, resting time, leg position, cuff size, and cuff placement. That's already 6 things that can quietly shift your numbers without you ever realizing it. And here's the part most people miss entirely. It's not usually just one of these mistakes happening. It's often 2 or 3 at once. Maybe you're resting your arm on your lap while also talking to someone right after walking in from outside. Each mistake stacks a little more distortion onto the reading, and by the time you look at that number, it might be quite a bit higher or lower than your actual blood pressure. Now let's talk about timing, because when you check your blood pressure matters just as much as how you check it. A lot of people check first thing in the morning, right when they wake up, which can actually be one of the more misleading times to check, because blood pressure naturally tends to rise a bit in the early morning hours as your body wakes itself up. Others check right after a meal, which can also shift things, since digestion pulls blood flow toward your stomach and can affect your numbers temporarily. Caffeine is another factor. If you've just had your morning coffee, some research shows it can cause a short-term bump in blood pressure for about 30 minutes to an hour afterward. Same goes for smoking, if that applies to you, or even a stressful phone call right before you check. So, what's the better approach? Many doctors suggest checking around the same time each day, ideally not immediately after waking, not right after eating, and not right after caffeine or exercise. Give yourself a buffer of at least 30 minutes from any of those. And here's a tip that a lot of people don't know. It's often recommended to take 2 or 3 readings, about a minute apart, and use the average, rather than relying on just one number. Because even under perfect conditions, blood pressure naturally fluctuates slightly from one minute to the next, and a single reading is just a snapshot, not the full picture. Let's talk about one more thing that's easy to overlook, and that's your bladder. It sounds like a strange detail to bring up, but having a full bladder when you take a reading has been shown in some research to raise blood pressure slightly, sometimes by several points. So, a quick bathroom break before you check can actually help you get a more accurate number. Now here's a mini re-engagement moment, because I want to bring this back to something practical. You might be thinking, that's a lot of variables. How am I supposed to keep track of all of it? And that's a completely fair thought. So let me simplify it into something you can actually use. Before your next reading, try this sequence. Use the bathroom if you need to. Sit down in a chair with back support, feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed. Rest your arm on a table so the cuff sits at roughly heart height. Make sure the cuff is snug on bare skin, positioned correctly. Sit quietly for 5 minutes without talking, scrolling, or watching something that requires focus. Then take your reading. Wait about a minute and take it again. If you want a third for good measure, that's even better. And try to do this around the same time each day, away from caffeine, meals, or exercise. That sequence right there addresses almost every major pitfall we've talked about. It's not complicated, but it does take a little patience, especially if you've been doing it a different way for years. Old habits are hard to shift, and that's completely normal. Give yourself grace as you adjust to this. Now, let's talk about something else that matters just as much as technique, and that's the monitor itself. Not all home blood pressure monitors are created equal. Some are validated by clinical testing, meaning they've been checked against professional standards and shown to give reliable readings. Others, especially very cheap or very old models, may not have gone through that same validation process. If you're not sure whether your monitor is a validated one, it's worth checking the manufacturer's information or asking your pharmacist or doctor's office, since many of them keep lists of monitors that meet recognized accuracy standards. And even a good monitor can drift out of calibration over time, especially if it's been dropped, stored somewhere with big temperature swings, or used for several years without ever being checked. Bringing your home monitor with you to a doctor's visit so they can compare it side by side with the office reading is one of the simplest ways to know whether your device is still accurate. Let's pause again for a moment because I want to address something that might be on your mind. If you've just realized that your home readings might not have been fully accurate, please don't panic. This isn't about scaring you or making you feel like you've been doing everything wrong. Most people make at least one or two of these mistakes without ever knowing it, simply because nobody explained the details clearly. The goal of this video isn't to make you anxious about a number. It's to help you get a number you can actually trust, so you and your doctor are working from accurate information rather than guesswork. Now, I do want to gently mention something important here. If your readings, home or at the doctor's office, have consistently been running high, or if you've noticed symptoms like headaches, dizziness, or unusual fatigue alongside those readings, that's something worth discussing with your doctor directly. This video is meant to help you get more accurate numbers, not to replace medical advice or diagnose anything on its own. Your doctor knows your full health history, and they're the right person to interpret what your numbers mean for you specifically. Let's also touch on something that ties all of this together, which is keeping a simple log. Some research shows that people who track their readings over time, rather than looking at just one isolated number, tend to have a much clearer and more useful picture of their overall trends. A single high reading on a stressful day doesn't necessarily mean much on its own, but a pattern over several weeks tells a real story. You don't need anything fancy for this. A small notebook works just as well as an app. Jot down the date, the time, and your reading, maybe with a quick note if something unusual happened that day, like a stressful appointment or a poor night's sleep. Over time, that log becomes incredibly valuable, both for you and for your doctor. Let's do one more re-engagement moment before we wrap up, because I want to leave you with something clear and memorable. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. The number on your home monitor is only as accurate as the conditions you take it under. Small things, arm position, talking, resting time, cuff fit, timing around meals and caffeine, even a full bladder, all of these quietly shape that number more than most people ever realize. None of these fixes are complicated. None of them require special equipment or a big lifestyle change. They just require a little awareness and a few extra minutes of patience each time you check. So here's what I'd encourage you to do. The next time you sit down to check your blood pressure, slow down just a little. Get comfortable, get supported, get quiet, and give your body those few minutes it needs to settle before the cuff inflates. You might be surprised at how different and how much more trustworthy that number looks. If this video helped clear up some confusion for you, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, because we cover topics just like this every single week. Things that genuinely make a difference in how you understand and take care of your health as you get older. And if you learned even one new thing today, whether it was the arm position, the cuff size, or the timing around caffeine, drop a comment and let me know which one surprised you most. I read every single one, and it helps me know what to cover next. Take care of yourself. Take your readings with a little more patience from now on, and I'll see you in the next video.